God helps those who help themselves. Consciousness is fundamental and everything else is emergent from consciousness. So many structures in society, political, economic, ecological, industrial, so many different things are completely unsuitable in what we might envision as an enlightened age. The deeper reality of life will prevail over seemingly impossible obstacles.
Ladies and gentlemen, get ready for Wisdom Talks. And today's host, Amartat Kohn, director of Sunseed.
What's happening in the world today with division, poverty, racial and religious wars, economic disparity, how we can get to those billions of people to help raise consciousness.
The upwelling of consciousness in the world is not so much being created by us or by spiritual practitioners as some kind of cosmic phenomenon, and we're just riding the wave. Like surfers don't create the waves. If they're skillful, they get to ride the waves. If they're not so skillful, they wipe out. So I think this thing is happening regardless of what we do, and but we can become willing participants in it, and much to our benefit. I mean, make hay while the sun shines. It's a golden opportunity for rapid evolution if we ride the wave properly. I just interviewed a guy named Jem Bendel. It'll be going up in a week or two, and he feels that we're headed for catastrophic societal collapse, and I think he may be right, actually, because so many structures in society, political, economic, ecological, industrial, so many different things are completely unsuitable would be completely unsuitable in what we might envision as an enlightened age. Things like those things couldn't function as they now do. They would be so out of place in what anyone would imagine as an enlightened age. So are they going to willingly say, okay, we had it wrong, we're going to do it differently? That doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, everyone in all these areas seems to
not going to give up their power or their money easily.
Right. But there's something more fundamental, more powerful than those institutions, even though they may seem very powerful. And that is consciousness itself. The deeper you go, the more powerful it gets. Molecular, atomic, subatomic is one analogy. So there's greater leverage from a deeper, more fundamental, more causal level of creation. And although the modern scientific paradigm is that consciousness is created by the brain, there's the polar opposite perspective on that growing in popularity, which is that consciousness is fundamental and everything else is emergent from consciousness. So if that's true,
it's not so new. That's what Vedanta has been saying.
Oh yeah, it's been around for thousands of years, but the scientific paradigm is kind of the opposite of that these days.
Correct.
So I'm getting a little long-winded here, but what I'm trying to say to wrap it up is that it could be a David and Goliath kind of situation, or maybe a Jack and the Beanstalk situation, where the deeper reality of life will prevail over seemingly impossible obstacles.
Certainly, I mean, you and I and many other people are dedicating our lives to trying to create what I call consciousness media, to present many options, create a world differently than what this other disaster scenario is.
I'll tell you a story. So once upon a time, there was a seagull, and she laid her eggs on the shore, and she was tending the eggs, and then a wave came in and washed the eggs out into the ocean. And the seagull said, "Give back my eggs." And the ocean ignored her. And, "Come on, give back my eggs." The ocean ignored her. So she said, "Okay, I'm going to make you dry. I'm going to take." And so she started taking beakfuls of water and out of the ocean and putting them on the shore. And she just persisted in this day and night. Impossible odds, but she just was determined. I'm going to get back my eggs. So at some point, maybe the king of the birds took notice of her dedication and determination, and he came, and he had the power to say to the ocean, you better give back the eggs or I will make you dry. So the ocean said, okay, I'll give back the eggs. So there's a higher power, I think, functioning in the world. And we're, we are rather piddly little, pawns in the whole cosmic game. And that higher power has the ability to shift everything. And, we're just kind of doing our little parts. But if it were solely dependent upon our capabilities, I don't think it would happen.
You can also look at the power of the universe, this higher power, and maybe, I mean, whatever happened, they gave human beings free will.
Yeah.
And maybe it's totally oblivious to what we do, whether we survive. I mean, if there are infinite planets out there, and of course the Earth will survive no matter what happens to the human race.
Yes and no. I mean, God helps those who help themselves. And I'm sure that everywhere, somewhere in the universe, every day, some planet gets blown to smithereens by an asteroid or gets melted as its star becomes a red giant or something, which will eventually be the fate of the Earth. That doesn't mean all the souls dwelling on those planets cease to exist, but that's another story. They find some other place to live. So it might seem that nature is red in tooth and claw, as someone said, that it's kind of brutal and uncaring. But I do think, as I said earlier, that there's an evolutionary agenda to the universe. And, there's so many ancient traditions around the world which prophesized what seems to be happening now, which prophesies many things which have already come to pass, but which then prophesies that after much trial and tribulation, there will be, and probable death of many, many people, there will be a kind of a renaissance or a dawning of a more enlightened age. And maybe we're just idealistic and naive, but I prefer to ascribe to that vision.
Last night I was at a Dances of Universal Peace introduction by a man from Colombia who was actually in one of the in the movie Sunflower, as we get it made, and he was talking about a tribe in South America where they actually have a whole mythology about this, that there were so many thousands of years of I used the word darkness, they used a different word, and that's all preparing for the age that we're entering into, which will turn things right. So
I heard the same thing. There was some prophecy of the eagle and the condor and the
eagle and
yeah,
the condor. Exactly.
And the eagle consciousness, which is the head, was going to dominate for 500 years and almost destroy everything. But then the condor consciousness was going to reemerge and set things aright. So there's a book called Prophecies and Predictions, Everyone's Guide to the Coming Changes by a woman named Moira Timms. You can find it on Amazon. But I read that back in the 80s, and she went through all the different ancient cultures that she could find and looked at what they had prophesized and found that a lot of it had already happened, and then extrapolated from the time she wrote the book to the coming decades and discussed what might be happening soon. And it's just what we're talking about here, if anybody wants to go into that in more detail.
So let's go back now into the practice, and specifically the practice of meditation, because one of the threads which seems to be coming out in our age is how meditation itself can help. Obviously, we look at the scientific ways of more peace and more productivity and all that, but can also help actually in terms of raising of consciousness. And as you said, there are many different types. Do you think that meditation itself is essential for this future that we're hopefully creating and raising consciousness?